Hello, you're watching TVP World Talks. I'm Milan Szrewiński. The Western Balkans, a region formerly known as a source of instability at the turn of the previous century, is now at a crossroads once again. At the end of one path lies European integration, while the other promises more uncertainty and interference from external powers. Between Albania's latest elections, Serbia's political maneuvering, and Bosnia and Herzegovina's secessionist fears, we explore the region's current position, where it stands, what the stakes are, and what options lie ahead. Joining us now is Tefta Kelmendi, Deputy Director of the Wider Europe Programme at the ECFR. Hello and welcome to TVP World.
Hello and thank you for having me.
So let's begin with Albania. According to most reports, it seems like Mr. Edi Rama has secured a fourth term. What do you think does that mean for the prospects for Albania to join the European Union?
Yes, so for the Western Balkans watcher, the winning of the Socialist Party and Edi Rama as Prime Minister wasn't a surprise. This is going to be the fourth term of Edi Rama running the country. This is also a result, I think, of an ongoing reform process that has taken place under the socialist government in Albania. So it is more or less a positive news in regards to the European integration path for the country. Edi Rama and the Socialist Party government is deeply pro-European, has supported reforms, including significant reforms on justice and rule of law. However, there is ongoing need for European and international support for this rule of law enforcement institutions to remain independent in fighting corruption, which remains still Albania's key challenge in its European integration path. But overall, I think Edi Rama's election is positive in continuing the European integration path of Albania, which in the Western Balkans remain one of the key frontrunners in the accession process.
Speaking of challenges, there are reports that the OSCE, which was monitoring the elections, has found that there were certain problems there, certain irregularities, including intimidation of members of the public administration, suggesting that these people might have been coerced or at least have received suggestions to vote for the government. Are such situations serious enough to actually cast a shadow on this process of reforms? We seem to have lost our connection for a moment there. In the meantime, as we're working to restore our connection, we'll be taking a look again at the context. We have partial results. Most of the votes have been counted in Albania, indicating that Edi Rama will be Prime Minister once again. There have been, however, accusations from the OSCE concerning the integrity of the election, specifically instances of intimidation against members of the administration, suggesting perhaps that votes might have been cast by these people under a certain degree of duress. We seem to have restored our connection with our guest today, Tefta Kelmendi. So let's go back to our conversation. The OSCE is accusing the government in Albania of putting pressure on officials to basically vote for Edi Rama, not for the opposition. Are these accusations serious enough? Do you think they will impinge upon the image of Albania as a country that wants to join the EU by the year 2030?
We need to still wait for the final reports of the election observation organizations to be able to assess how serious these irregularities were. From what I understand, there were instances indeed of some irregularities, not to a very large extent to pose a real question on whether these were fair and free elections. I think that, of course, having for a fourth time the same prime minister isn't a good signal in terms of the health of the democracy in the country, but this can be attributed to many factors, including the state of the opposition, which remains relatively weak and also is known for its controversial and corrupt affairs, the leader of the opposition party. But overall, I think we can conclude that these elections up to now are considered still relatively democratic and respecting key norms.
Although Mr. Sali Berisha, the main rival of Mr. Edi Rama, has already promised that he will try to challenge this. A developing story, most definitely. We're now quickly moving on to Bosnia and Herzegovina. Milorad Dodik is no longer welcome in Poland. Milorad Dodik is the leader of the Republika Srpska, the Serbian majority part of Bosnia and Herzegovina. Do you think that this is the right move? Should other countries act accordingly, given that Mr. Dodik has been fairly friendly with Vladimir Putin recently?
Mr. Milorad Dodik indeed is a persona non grata of some Western countries, not least for his activities in threatening the territorial integrity and the sovereignty of Bosnia and Herzegovina. He is also has kept regular contact with counterparts in Russia. He has been the key destabilizing force in Bosnia and Herzegovina's political stability, but also poses a real threat to the more broader regional stability. And here I refer particularly both to his links to Russia as well as to his secessionist project in Bosnia and Herzegovina that can have serious consequences for the broader security of the region. And in that regard, I think that there needs to be indeed a very clear messaging and unified across the EU to take sanctions and measures against Dodik at a larger scale at this point. Maybe I have answered your question.
So these separatist tendencies, do you think they may actually continue nibbling away at the integrity of Bosnia and Herzegovina, especially if the court verdict against Mr. Dodik becomes final? He was sentenced of undermining the structures established during or as a result of the Dayton Accords, and he would be banned from politics for years.
It remains a challenge, but we need to allow the justice institutions of Bosnia and Herzegovina, state-level institutions, to continue being able to conduct their work independently. Unfortunately, Mr. Dodik has ignored this verdict, and this verdict has not been respected in all countries in the region, also not in Hungary. I believe that the major risk in whether or not his secessionist project can be stopped, halted, is a result of a rather absent or uncertain U.S. policy in the Western Balkans and more specifically in Bosnia and Herzegovina. There has been a message coming from even this U.S. administration condemning the acts of Mr. Dodik in recent acts and steps towards secessionism, but more is needed to actually be able to halt further escalation in that regard, both from the US but as well as from the EU. But for US specifically, because of the role the US has played in safeguarding Dayton Agreement, in safeguarding Bosnia's stability and peace throughout these years and decades.
And now very quickly jumping to Serbia, leader of the European Council, Antonio Costa, has met with Aleksandar Vučić, the president of Serbia, right after he went to accompany Vladimir Putin at the parade in Moscow. Was this a good signal from the EU? Is dialogue still necessary and useful?
Certainly criticized by many EU member states that are very critical of Vučić for both his posture as playing a balancing act between the West on one side, the EU integration path, and on the other side, entertaining relations with Russia and China as well. Yes, I believe that this meeting can send signals that are not positive also in the Western Balkans and in Serbia among protesters that are demanding change and new government and new elections in Serbia for over 7 months. But at the same time, we need to see this in a broader diplomatic and security context of the European geopolitical situation. Indeed, Costa's message is also one that can be understood as this is maybe crossing the lines. It is time for Serbia to clearly position either in favor of European integration, democracy, and in that sense needs to take serious steps to address the demands of the protests, to return Serbia on its democratic path and European integration path, as well as cut all links with Russia and align with the EU on sanctions, which the Serbian government has not done so. So if you understand it that way, following this meeting, I think it's also a signal of political messaging at the highest level from the EU, really in asking Serbia to take a stance and to take real concrete steps. However, this needs to be followed with some concrete actions in case of Serbia continuing its current ambiguity with regards to Russia. And here I refer to the EU really changing course vis-a-vis Serbia and starting to have adopt maybe a more coercive approach.
Tefta Kelmendi was our guest today here on TVP World. Thank you very much for joining us and for sharing your expertise.
Thank you.
And I'm Minash Revinsky. You're watching TVP World. Please stay with us for more latest news and updates.